For the last section, let's look at why we made the claim at the beginning. Angels can't exist, and we zoom in here to angels can't think without us. Like the minds
we have not covered that
people in the afterlife couldn't function unless we were how we are. And our thoughts are essential for heaven to be able to function the way it functions.
That's a wild assertion.
So I say you're doing a job that you don't realize just by being you and just keep on going on building the basement. It's making it so heaven, it's possible for like the heaven of angels to exist. This is from Swedenborg's Last Judgment, number 9. The heaven of angels cannot be separated from humankind, or humankind from the heaven of angels. Therefore, the Lord has provided that each does work that is of benefit to the other.
Oh.
The heaven of angels to humankind, and humankind to the heaven of angels. That is why, even though the dwelling places of angels are in heaven and appear to be at a remove from the dwellings where we live, the angels are still right with us, in our feelings for what is good and what is true. That is the intent of the Lord's words, "Those who love me will keep my word, and my Father will love them, and we will come to them and make a home with them." So if you're doing the kinds of things that God, who love itself, wants you to do, angels can move in with you.
That is such a concept that it's not just temporary. It's easier for me to, for some reason, to think that, oh, you're in a particularly good mood, then an angel could be with you at that moment or something like that. Now, Swedenborg says they're always with us. But the idea that they actually live, like you are their house. He said, yes, they have dwellings in the spiritual world, all that sort of stuff. But in another sense, you're where they live. They're
Right.
living there.
He goes on, what is said of the Father and the Lord in this verse also includes heaven, because it's God saying, we'll move in with you.
And there's a plural in there or something.
Sure,
Yeah.
because wherever the Lord is, heaven is there. In heaven, all feelings about things that are good and true extend outward. So people there who share similar feelings communicate with one another and are connected. And since our consciousness is spiritual, so our spirit actually inhabits the spiritual world right now, we too connect through these positive feelings.
And this is not a time and space thing. I mean, this is just immediate. They're present.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just any old feelings. It was particular, like if you love goodness or you love truth, things like that.
Love me and keep my
words,
word. Love
right?
me and keep my word. Yep.
Yeah.
Not all human actions and emotions and intentions have the same utility for providing that home for angels.
Might be an outbuilding.
Yeah. You can be in a mode of life where it's not angels don't love you, don't care about you. It's not that God is constantly there trying to influence your life towards the better, but they can't live in those kind of feelings and thoughts. So it doesn't. And if everybody had super selfish and violent and terrible urges and lives, there would be nowhere for angels to live.
That's where it would be cut off asunder.
And that's when life, according to Swedenborg, on the whole planet would be wiped out.
Yeah, and this is a little dark, but I think how that might happen is that there would be no restraint on people just going after each other. I think people might just kill each other until you're the last two people left or something,
And be incapable of building any kind of society. I don't know if it's consciousness itself or breaks down. Whatever it is, let's not do that.
Let's not explore it.
Let's bring the heaven
I have
in.
wasted idle hours thinking about how that might go. But
So then it talks about how the actions and the thoughts that we have in this world, which can seem like they don't have much of an impact sometimes beyond just your own head and your little life, they make a small ripple. Actually, those things provide the base materials for angels to be able to receive their deep thoughts that they get, and it lets them receive what God is sending to them and pass it on through. Like they have to be, if you look at like a circuit with batteries, but the nodes have to be connected for the electricity to flow through. It's like that. We have to If we create something that can receive on our end, then the angels are part of this conduit that pulls the Lord's good stuff into us.
And we have some relatively small thought or feeling, and they're getting something huge, like something great is happening in them.
Well, in continuing this time in Secrets of Heaven, thoughts in our minds serve to spark angels' spiritual thoughts. The images in us that serve this way come mainly from the Word, because all the individual elements of Scripture represent something, and each and every word symbolizes something. Angels notice immediately that these images come from the Word, because they contain spiritual and heavenly messages that come one after another in their proper, most perfectly arranged order.
They can tell. Like a lot of people in this world, I think if you said, me included, say, is this a line from the Bible? You know, and then quote some obscure little piece. Like you wouldn't know.
Yeah.
But there you can tell. You can tell because of what happens with the thoughts. And so that does, first of all, that's amazing what that says about the Bible. And it also makes it important that we, I think Swedenborg says in other passages that it's important as well how we're holding it. In other words, if we have a head full of wrong ideas about what the Bible is or what it says or who God is or the whole deal, that's not helpful. It's helpful if we're more aligned with the way that angels think of it, which is really, in a way, you could say Swedenborg's whole project is to try to get us thinking about the Bible, thinking about life, thinking about God, thinking about life after death in the ways that angels do. That's just called Secrets of Heaven, right? And and things like that. That if we're thinking that way, then when we read Scripture, some little piece about what happened in what order, pow, you know, they get a lot out of it.
It's like a callback. It's a comedy routine and you start a joke near the beginning and you go on it for a while, then you leave it and you do a bunch of other jokes, but near your last joke or your second to last joke, you make the joke and then you reference something from the first joke. Everybody's like, that's so clever. Oh, you had a plan this whole time. Swedenborg is all callbacks. So we're sitting here starting to do a show about how there's a spiritual world and a physical world, and the two effortlessly need, or not effortlessly, interdependently need each other to interact. And we talk about how that's like the skin and muscles and organs in a body and all that. That's what we're talking about, the spiritual interface between the mind of the world of spirits and how it works according to its own order and its own laws versus the physical and how that works. We're not talking about the Bible, but yet here comes Swedenborg's main thrust of his writings about how the whole Bible is written in symbolic language, and it just it's a callback, ties right in here without even trying, which is to say the reason why God gave a divine revelation that is in this symbolic, correspondential, weird storytelling mode is because what happens is those particular seemingly simplistic, bizarre stories, those provide the it's like a code. It's like if you say Foxo whiskey tango foxtrot, and no, it doesn't make any sense to somebody except the people on the other end know, oh, that means this, and then they can kick into action. In us, when we think about Moses parts the Red Sea, okay, there's some water and the guys and they go through. Heaven just can take that and there's an explosion of creativity. I know we mentioned the Beatles already once, but you know that song Let It Be? Let It Be?
It's not nearly enough. Let's do some more.
Their song Let It Be. And the song's, that's what Mary says. And he said, Mother Mary comes to me, which is the name of Paul McCartney's mom, but also famously Mary, the mother of Jesus, says, let it be to me according to your word.
That's right.
And I think of that song as like this explosion of the meaning in there, about let it. So I'm just saying there's way more than that packed into every bit of this. This is why there's this order where you guys read these little stories. Maybe you get some of it. Really, the audience is heaven in a lot of ways.
And what I'm getting out of this episode and out of that quote in particular is the implication is that they can't do it without us. Like what happened, like the trigger, the spark, it said in there in one of those passages, didn't it? Is us reading. Like there's an image in our minds. That's pow. Oh, and now they see. If we hadn't read it, they're not seeing that.
If you go with the analogy again of somebody who's trying to create something, they're trying to think of a song or they're trying to get inspiration for some kind of great work of art. The inspiration, what they'll go and do is go like walk around and look at things, and something has to spark something in them.
That's right.
And it may be that they see some little interaction of nature, something that by itself nobody would take and frame and put on a wall and auction off for $20 million. But something about that artist needed that in their mind in order to turn into that. So it's like we, with our little thoughts and our little reading of our crude version of the revelation, that sparks this amazing inspiration in heaven, which they can do so much more than we can, but they couldn't do it without us. Continuing on in Divine Love and Wisdom, 279. The angels who are with us are aware in detail of the actions of our minds within our deeds. Every one of the
actions of our mind. What interesting phrasing. Isn't
Yeah,
it?
right.
The actions of our minds within our deeds. Because as Swedenborg is fond of pointing out, you could get 100 people all doing the same thing, but they're doing it for 100 different reasons. Who they are inside that deed is different. And angels will even say that for some people, he uses the example of people sitting around having a drink and telling dirty jokes and stuff like that. And angels will say, that person's fine. Their heart's in a good place. Like they don't, no problem. This guy's, he's in trouble. The reason he said that, what he's thinking and feeling, not good.
Right.
Same thing, same joke, kind of thing.
In same action, he at one point Swedenborg gives the comparison. If there could be somebody who, he talks about this in terms of the Christian church, but somebody who went out and persecuted the whole Christian church and tried to destroy it and wipe it off the face of the earth, but they were doing it from a good motive. Like they really thought this is the right thing to do. They'd go to heaven just fine. And somebody who went and like spread the gospel and did all kinds of things to advance the knowledge of the importance of Jesus Christ and the spread of the word, but we're doing it for selfish reasons, at love of dominion, love of renown, they could be in a state of hell. The actions, this is why you can't make spiritual judgments.
You can't make judgment.
You can make civil judgments, which are approximate calls you have to make where you say, this person seems dangerous, so we've got to put some limitations on their movement or something, because we can't tell and we don't know if they're going to do it again. You can do that, but you can never know. You can never say, I know that you're evil, I know that you're good.
Yeah.
You don't know. Yeah.
Such a simple thing. You can't say that.
I can say,
you don't know that.
I can say, we're going to have to, we think we have to incarcerate you because you seem like you're we think you did this act.
Yeah.
And we think you did it, or even if you did it and it was, you feel terrible about it now. I saw a little clip of a guy who had he was drunk driving and killed someone. And you can just see like the regret and the anguish that he had done it. And your heart, even though like, of course that he shouldn't have done that, your heart goes out to the family who lost it, but you can't also help your heart going out to him, that he wasn't himself when he did it. It doesn't mean that he doesn't have to go to jail for that, but it's a different thing than somebody who has killed someone and knew they were doing it and didn't care. Even somebody else who was drunk driving but doesn't really have remorse about it, doesn't really want to change their ways. Even though the civil penalty may need to be the same, it's a different spiritual situation.
Yeah, that's right. Very important principle.
Every one of the acts or deeds of a spiritual person is like a delicious, nourishing, and beautiful fruit to angels. A fruit that yields flavor, nourishment, and pleasure when it is sliced and eaten.
Okay, so that you just took the whole episode to a different level right there because
that escalated quickly.
it did. Yeah, it did. I'm a little dizzy because you not only took it from the fact that there's this dependency, but somehow, being kind of I like fruit, I like eating fruit. That analogy got to me. It's not just like if we're not doing those things, they're not.
They don't eat.
Eating that piece of fruit. In a sense, it said it was like that,
Yeah.
but it's like it's sliced and eaten where they get some. It's not just like, okay, that was valuable, thank you, appreciate it, but the kind of pleasure that you can get, the satisfaction, that is amazing to think about. That if we're not doing certain things, they're not getting that piece of fruit.
We're like the plants. We are like the plants. If you talk about fruit, here's the human race, and we can eat a lot of fruit, except the plants got to grow it. And if something happens where the plants aren't producing fruit, there's a drought or there's a disease.
Doesn't matter how much you love it. If you can't convince a plant to produce that fruit for you, you're not getting fruit.
So the angels, we're like the plants to them. The lives that we live here, the relatively stiff and static and immobile lives, if that leads to us down here producing these good actions and doing love on this plane where it's hard to do it, that's like the crop for the year to the angels.
And I get in a different way how that keeps them alive. So we couldn't live without plants. They can't live without us.
Isn't Jesus constantly saying, bear fruit?
He does say that a lot.
Go bear fruit.
He likens us to branches, and he's a vine, and bear fruit. And
like a tree is known by its fruit. Everyone tree who doesn't produce good fruit. I mean, man.
He said, I don't know how I missed it. He does say that a lot. It does seem like we're the plants in this whole this multi-universal ecosystem here.